Leaving work a little bit early today. If you're one of those who work in the public transport sector, you might want to go and redo your license. Why? There's a backlog of around 6,000 public transport operator licenses in Gauteng. Here's the worrying part. So you've got 6,000. Now we hear the Transport Department has only received 500 applications. So that means there's an awful number of people driving on the roads without the correct operator licenses. So there's now talk around renewing expired licenses, another opportunity to get that done with the window closing on the 31st of July. Let's bring in the department's spokesperson, Mr. Lesiba Mpia, always willing to make time for me. Lesiba, good morning to you, and we'll get to how this can be clarified in a moment. Just want to make sure I have my numbers right. So 6,000 transport operating licenses that need to be renewed. You're only getting 500 bookings to actually have this done, applications. That's an awful number of people driving around illegally, isn't it? Good morning.
Good morning, Gareth, and good morning to the viewers. Yes, quite a disturbing response from the industry. We have had 6,006 submissions. And we have since issued about precisely 489, so a little bit under 500. So the industry would have requested us to actually expedite the issue of renewing operating licenses, and that dates back as far back as August last year. A process has since been set up. Our own HOD had put processes in place to actually ensure that there's overtime. Colleagues are working, tirelessly to ensure that the industry 6,006 submissions get responded to. And obviously this is in concurrence with the NDOT, because the National Department of Transport owns the system in terms of the National Land Transport Act. But we have since seen a very slow response from the industry. We have, on the 7th of this month, written to the industry to say, can they impress upon their members to actually come through, because the 6,006 submissions come short of completions of details. We have since been sending SMSs and calls to members who have made submissions, but unfortunately at this stage their applications is incomplete, and their operating license cannot be issued until such time that they complete the submissions of their applications.
Yeah, I mean, these submissions of these applications really aren't that difficult to do as well, Lesiba, because I see that this deadline for the license renewal for the public transport sectors, the operating licenses for transport, it's going to come to an end on the 31st of July. Has that date moved, or is that now cast in stone? 31 July is when this deadline is in place. Is that still correct?
That's still correct, Gareth, the 31st of July, and hence we are making an appeal to the industry. We have received commitment from the leadership of the Gauteng taxi industry that they will definitely impress upon their members to actually, come forward and ensure that everyone is compliant and legal.
What happens if they don't? What happens if they don't get this done by the 31st of July? As you say, compliant and legal. What happens after 31 July if they don't have this operating license? What are the penalties?
The consequence, Gareth, is the undesired, impounding of vehicles. We are empowered by law to actually effect that, measure of the law. But we have since requested this, the members that we want, because they've raised issues with the MEC to say, can the impounding of vehicles cease, and then we will definitely as an industry comply. But we are not impressed in terms of the slow process. I think the MEC has given a bit of grace up until the 31st of July, but we are quite concerned that that commitment that we will cease to, be aggressive on the impounding of vehicles, provided that the members come forward and renew their operating licenses. These operating licenses, some of them, Gareth, is that once they expire, the system removes you completely, deletes you. So there has been a window period, and we must appreciate the NDOT for playing ball. The window period has been opened, and we want to implore upon the taxi industry to take opportunity of this window period, or there will definitely be consequences in terms of the law as empowered by the National National Land Transport Act.
Yeah, I want to ask you a last question just as to what commuters need to be doing. Lesiba, just before I do that, for viewers who are looking for our telephone number, by the way, it's not related to this conversation. It's got to do with our viewer question. Interest rates not going up yesterday. What are you planning to do now that you're not being hit by another interest rate hike? The lines are open, by the way. There it is, 011-537-9431. Not related to this particular discussion. I thought, let me just throw that out there while I have a moment. Lesiba, I want to end off with this, though. For commuters, if the 31st of July deadline is missed, and it is for these transport operating licenses, how do we know if a company or a driver is not legal? How do we know if they're not allowed to be on the road? Just give me a sense of what we look for.
Look, you'll probably not know as a commuter because these operating licenses are not necessarily displayed like the disc. So what we will be doing beyond the 31st of July is to put boots on the ground, law enforcement. We have a public transport inspectorate unit that we will be deploying to ensure that we remove all non-compliance minibus taxis, so as to ensure that the safety of our people is heightened. I think that is the primary concern of the department, the safety of our people. And these part of the prerequisites of issuing and operating licenses is to examine a vehicle that is fit for purpose, to examine a vehicle that is fully licensed. Yeah. And we will not have a situation where we have vehicles on the road that are not fully licensed, that are not fit to actually ferry the citizens or the residents of Gauteng.
There we go. You've been warned, haven't you, as well? So you've got till the 31st of July 2023 to get these transport operating licenses done. Only 500 applications done out of more than 6,000. So you have a couple of days to get that done, or else you're not going to get any sympathy at all. Department spokesperson Lesiba Mpia making time for me this morning from